Season 1, Episode 10. I've got Mike Borthwick from neighbourhood in the studio today. We're talking about nerdy, geeky things from software road mapping to Agile versus Waterfall to wireframing and just how kick-ass the Amiga personal computer was. Now, Mike also created and self-published a drinking game called Do Done Drink. He believes that humor should be used for self-defense, and he's a fan of anarchy. What can he say? He's a rebel to the core. I'm your host, Michael Dean Dargy, Season 1, Episode 10, Death Before Waterfall, on RebelRebel.
While you're at home, could you do the laundry and make sure the dishes get done? And I'm like, no, I'm working. Like,
imagine I'm at the office.
Even now, if I do work from home, I will make sure that I drive her to work first without telling her that I'm working from home until well after lunch. Just so I don't get those interrupters while you're working from home.
Oh my god.
No.
That's amazing. I love the fact that we're rolling on all this. So I'm sitting here in the Kensington studio with Mike Borthwick of neighbourhood.
Hi guys.
Hey.
Girls.
And you know, the stuff that you do is remarkable. You've got
thanks.
Yeah. Well, I was checking out your website, which I just dig because it kind of lays it all out. You know, all these things that you can do and have to think about when you're creating an app, or whether it's going to be a mobile app, or whether it's going to be the application for your computer, or whatever. I mean, you do some cool shit, and you've got a process, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, the first step to becoming a professional in any industry is putting together a process that works for you. Mm-hmm. Which is, I think, if you're looking for a freelancer, anyone, ask about their process or what it is, and just really cut to the chase there and find out, do they have a process? What is that process? If they don't have a process, find a polite excuse to get out of that conversation.
Right, run away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Cool. So why don't you, you've come up with this over the years that you've been doing your thing. Why don't you give us like a quick little rundown of who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Okay, so I actually started writing code when I was 10 years old in 1982.
1982.
Yeah, I wrote and I created a little video game. And I started selling a little video game on the playground. And that was how I ended up buying a better computer.
You're kidding me.
So I could do more programming. And I did some more programming on a couple of different projects. I worked with some friends on some projects, a trivia game. Lane, if you're out there listening to this by any chance, man, that was a good time. That was fun. They didn't really go anywhere, to be honest, but there were some really good early formative experiences.
That's cool. So 10 years old, like, what were you writing in BASIC?
Basic. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Peek and poke to do sprite work and stuff. Yeah, wow. It was crazy.
And what was your system du jour? Like, what were you on?
I started with a Commodore VIC-20.
Oh, I love VIC-20.
And then I moved to a 64, and I was saving for an Amiga because I wanted to do more graphics work, and that was the bomb for graphics back then. But then the PC came out. I fell in love with dial-up bulletin board systems, and
that was the rest of history.
I went into PC from that point on.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I went on a sort of a similar route. I started on a TRS-80 in 1979, and I programmed BASIC just so I could draw on the computer and write music.
Yes,
that was my entire motivation.
One of my first PC apps was actually a keyboard synthesizer.
Really?
Yeah, it was lots of fun.
Oh, amazing.
I had to do so much math for that. Holy crap.
Oh, yeah. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we had like one of those phone coupler modems, like the big heavy black phones that you could kill somebody with in a movie. And you like plug it in and be like, Burdick.
Get online, defend your home. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got a little bit tired of it, though. At the end of high school, I had a number of scholarships to study in the U.S.
Oh, nice.
Actually, the first digital design school in Seattle actually gave me a full ride to go and study there.
No kidding.
I turned them down.
Why?
I was pretty burned out on the whole nerd getting bullied in high school. All those negative connotations. Revenge of the Nerds movies were pretty popular at the time, and it was horrendous to think of myself being stuck in an office writing code for somebody else for the rest of my life. Yeah. So I went and I thought I was going to save the planet. I was very environmentally focused. I was volunteering with Greenpeace.
Wow.
While at university. So I studied physical geography.
Yeah.
And I ended up having to do a paper there on ice core samples out of Antarctica and their relation to carbon dioxide concentrations and the mean global average temperature and this global warming climate trend piece.
Wow.
And I needed somebody to write some code. And that got me back in again. And I started writing code to help out with that.
Out, they dragged you back in.
Every time, man. Every time. And then all my mapping experience led me to doing some work with Google Maps on some websites for a couple of startups.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean, if you're listening. I've got this wonderful piece where I got to do some really cool stuff with some really cool people on web. This would have been 10 and 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And that just sort of inspired me to keep up with the programming and doing web stuff, because I realized I wasn't doing work at that point. I was doing stuff that I loved, and somebody was willing to pay me.
It's like a match made in heaven.
It was.
Yeah.
So that's been my last 12 years of my life, and with a few exceptions, they've all been positive experiences, and I've always loved what I've done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that is uncommon. It seems way more common in my circle, but it seems like everybody else in the world that's not common. But I mean, do you find that you tend to gravitate towards people who are just, you know what, I'm going to do what the fuck I want, and I'm going to be happy while I'm doing it, because there's no point in being bitter?
I find it frustrating working with the other type of people who are constantly down on themselves.
Yeah.
Because I get tired of trying to lift them up all the time sometimes.
Sure.
It's like, you can be happy. Look at what's going good in your life. Here's an opportunity for a job doing what you love. Why don't you go and do that instead? Like,
I can.
No, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make French fries. Like,
where's my table?
Yeah.
It's like the Eeyore complex.
Yeah. Find what you love and pursue it. Yeah.
Also, so programming is not a huge part of your life right now.
No.
You've sort of gravitated a different way, and you're doing lots of talking, like speaking engagements and stuff like that too, right? Yeah,
after 12 years, I really don't want to write Hello World in another programming language. I've solved all those problems in 17 different languages now. I don't need to do it anymore. I'm kind of the passion for writing code is dwindling.
Right.
But the passion for saving developers, sometimes from themselves, by teaching them process, coming all the way back to where we started again, is exactly where I'm most passionate about. And it comes from this experience I had about 5 years ago, where this guy walked into the company that I was working for looking to build a website.
Yeah, okay.
And he had a golf scorecard, a 5-letter .com domain that they had registered well, but they were on the golf course for like $5,000 or something. They bought it off of a squatter, and they had
squatter's lucky day.
Yeah, and the 4 guys' names who were playing golf that day, and the amount of money each one of them were kicking into the thing. And they said, "Here you go, build this for us." And I went, "Are you fucking kidding me?" There's $5 million in money raised by these 4 people on a golf course to build this 5-letter .com domain thing, and that's what they wanted us to run off of. Wow. And I thought, we'll spend your money.
Yeah.
But they have no background in software. They have no background in code. They had no idea what they were getting in for. They had no idea what the process was going to be. And the company I was working for at the time had great sales, fantastic sales, but they themselves didn't know what their process was.
Wow.
And we tried to wing it a lot on a lot of things and just pump them out as quickly as possible. It was a real meat grinder. I didn't really care for that job at all.
Yeah.
And then it happened again, and it happened again. And during the recent downturn here, I got packaged out of my big, comfy programmer job with the big company. And that gave me a bit of a runway to pursue something. And I thought, it's going to be a race, right?
Yeah.
I'm either going to land a client or I am going to find a new job.
Yeah.
And so I was fighting to find clients about 20 hours a week, and I was interviewing about 10 hours a week, and I was working on this idea that I had for software road mapping for about 10 hours a week, trying to write it down. That's how I think, is just writing, right?
So my entire house could be covered in whiteboards, and I'd be happy.
Oh, me too. Yeah, a good whiteboard. It's worth every penny.
Yeah.
So I pursued that just with blind passion, you know. I have to get it out of my head. I have to do this thing before I run out of money. I gotta find clients before I run out of money. And I went into an interview, and these guys, they've got $1 million. They've got a development team of 2. They were looking to hire a 3rd to bring me on board. And when I asked them, you know, what kind of wireframing do you have? What kind of scope documentation have you done?
Yeah.
Basically asking what their process was and what their roadmap looked like. They had nothing.
Yeah.
And it looks something like this. And if you're in software, you've probably had this experience. You come in on a Monday morning, you're the new hire. The company's got this great idea for this new piece of software they want to do.
Yeah.
And they sit you down in a boardroom for about 2 hours and they say, okay, we got you a computer, we got you a desk, get started. And you're supposed to run on 2 hours. So what happens is we adopt this agile project management style where we're like, okay, we're gonna go do a week of work. We're gonna come back. We're gonna show them what we did. We're gonna get some feedback. We're gonna be iterative in our approach.
I sometimes wonder about these frameworks like agile. Like just coming up with that is really we're going to iterate this thing to death. We will always shift and flip and move. We'll never actually write anything down
because then you're not iterative, right? Then you're waterfall, which is like if you're a developer, waterfall is like we can't do waterfall. We're gonna die.
Yes, death.
death before waterfall. Yeah, there it is.
I got t-shirts. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that. Maybe a hat and camel green or something.
Totally.
Yeah. They tried to get out of these supposedly old archaic into the new philosophy all the time.
Right.
Developers are always, we're tech, we're high tech, we got to be on the bleeding edge, we got to do whatever's cool and new. Now, let's go back to 1982, because Agile was developed before. We started adopting it in web, right? Yeah. Functional programming paradigms were developed in 1976. They were around when I was writing BASIC, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And we took a look at I decided to say screw all that while I was working on my own process. While I was terribly disappointed at the state of startups in the city who were trying to hire me, or I was trying to get hired by, who had not done any work at all to set the developers up for success. And as it turns out, when you go on the business side of things, there's this concept of risk.
Right.
Risk identification, risk management, what's it called? Product market fit. You try to do all of this. And it turns out that there is a project management style called spiral project management that tries to identify risk from the technical perspective.
Yeah.
And it plugs in really nicely with startups.
Nice.
And it is an iterative approach as well as agile. And the more you learn about that process and you try and bring it into your development to try and support this race for validation in startup land, you find that you can take the risk from the business and separate that and leave that to your business development people or your marketing people to try and identify that. On the tech side, you have this race to risk. What is the most technological risky part of what it is that we are trying to do? And can we just write a little bit of code right now to validate this idea?
Right.
Can this actually be done?
What a great process.
You'd think so.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Drives software engineers up the wall.
Okay.
It just destroys them.
That's exactly what you want to do.
Here I am trying to find a way to rescue them from themselves, and it turns out that the biggest problem that I have is that they don't want to do it. And they don't know it's a problem.
Right.
Until you talk to them in terms of, if this was your startup,
right,
what would you do? Would you start with 100% unit test coverage coming right out of the door?
Right.
It doesn't work that way. And sure enough, the first thing that they would do is a prototype. And they know it. They can intuit what it is. But as soon as you put money in their hands for writing code for somebody else, they feel they have to write poetry. Line by line of the most perfectly written code ever because they are a professional software developer.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily work.
On the other side of that, I've seen some pretty scary Frankencode that exists for decades after, and it takes an entire team just to manage that mod Perl shit that got somehow home rolled into this enterprise level piece of software.
Frankencode is wonderful to a point.
Right.
Spaghetti code, wonderful to a point. Prototype, wonderful to a point. Minimum viable product, wonderful to a point.
Yeah.
What we've discovered is that if you're going to scale, you're going to have to rewrite your code.
Totally.
You can't scale Frankencode. You can't scale a prototype. A lot of the times, software startups get really bogged down in the concept of minimum viable product, and we'll just add features later.
Right.
When really, your minimum viable product is simply there to validate your market fit, your value proposition. Will people actually pay us for this?
Yeah.
And as soon as you start making money on that, this is where version 2.0 needs to come in.
Right. Yeah, like a full upgrade, a full version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way we write code for 10 billion connected users, it takes teams of thousands of developers for a reason.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that from one freelance developer.
Oh, yeah, no.
Regardless of how beautiful of code and how much coverage you get on your automated testing.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You can't use PHP to scale to 10 billion connected users.
What?
Unless, of course, you're doing some pretty heavy-duty stuff, and that's going to require a team and some system engineers and some system architectures that you're just not going to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. So, talk to me about your road mapping. Like, what's your...
Yeah.
I mean, I know why it's a passion. I mean, it just makes sense. I get often caught in places I don't want to be because of not having a good roadmap. Mm-hmm. And you've created this entire process and even some training around how to do this properly.
Yeah.
So you don't fuck up.
Yeah. So the most important thing I think entrepreneurs need to do is validate their idea.
Yeah.
And one of the tools that we can use to do that is in wireframing.
Yeah.
You just draw a picture of the interface that you want to look at, and then they hand that off to a developer. But there's a step in there that they're missing. And if you go on YouTube and you say, how do I do wireframes? They'll show you how to draw a wireframe.
Right.
And they'll practically show you how you can email that wireframe to your developer so that they can implement it on it.
Right.
This is weird. Why not take this drawing to some potential customers that you identified in your primary market research when doing your business plan in the first place, and actually have them tap on the picture or on the wireframe and say, can you actually fulfill your happy path or your storyline by tapping on these buttons? Do you get the next page? Is that what you were expecting to see? Those kinds of questions. This takes a half an hour. You can do it with a friend. We did that with user testing with video, even where we did a mock-up, like a functional mock-up, and then just watched people interact with it. They had like set tasks to do. How fast could they do them? Did they get confused? How frustrated were they at the end? How many holes were there in the wall after? Yes.
That was a good... we got construction next door, so that's going to be fun for the podcast too.
That's okay. They seem like nice people.
Yeah.
They have user-tested wireframing. It is so much easier to do user-tested wireframing on a whiteboard real fast as a first glimpse into your usability, into your UX. You can make a change on a whiteboard in a snap.
Right.
Try and change an entire user experience in code.
Oh yeah. You're
going to have to throw something out.
Yeah. Well, and we used to do that. That was back in 2000. We were doing it that way, and it was not very efficient.
No, but this is what they would ask you to do when you would sit down in one of those steering meetings, and you would go through your iterative agile process and come back once a week. That's not how to write code successfully. Yeah. That's how you sync a company successfully. If you know, if that's your goal, let me tell you, you're going about it just right. Yeah, the user testing, getting that learning up front is what road mapping is all about. Put that learning up front. I would be really interested. This is still kind of a new concept. Like if you go and you Google software road mapping, you're going to find articles on product road mapping or on project management tools you can use to manage your rollout. Software road mapping as a document, as a cohesive whole that you can actually hand to a developer or development team and have them execute on successfully, has two benefits in the sense that, one, you've put in the learning up front and you're sharing that learning with your development team, because your developers are never going to fly helicopters. They're never going to answer a 911 call. They're never going to be dog walkers. They're never going to know what it means to book a dance studio. And I'm just going through some of the projects I've worked on in the last 2 years,
That was far out.
Yeah. I'm never going to do any of those things. But I don't have the domain knowledge to be able to execute a solution for the problems that they're experiencing.
Right.
And I also, dear developers, I love you. Please ignore the next 10 seconds. We lack empathy sometimes.
Right.
When we sit there and we talk about the user. Sure. This is a pet peeve of mine.
It's an abstraction.
It is. It's an abstraction. We are removed from the person. We are removed from Julie, who's sitting there in a call center answers, "Hello, 911 dispatch. What is your emergency?" Okay, let's switch boots for a minute. Let's take Julie and get her to write code, and let's take Mr. Developer, the developer, we'll call him here, and we'll have him go and answer a 911 call, and we'll see just how much he shits his pants when he finds out that on the other end of that phone
is a screaming person.
Exactly.
Who's on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
These are real issues. These are real problems, and these are real people that we're solving them for. And as soon as you disconnect them, one of the things that we do in software road mapping is identify the primary user persona, and we give them a name. And so we're not just developing the software for the user.
It's for Bob.
It's for Bob. And this is how we try to carry empathy along with the learning in the roadmap document.
Interesting. I find it. I've never heard anybody describe like a programmer's mentality, maybe not the right word, but the lack of empathy, because I get it. Like, I totally get it, because it is an abstraction. You're just trying, not necessarily linear or binary really, but you've got a task to accomplish. How that impacts Julie or Bob isn't really your domain at all.
No.
You just have to make sure that this happens when they do this.
Your primary concern is making sure you get a good wage evaluation at the end of the day. And how do you do that? You write beautifully well-written, efficient, and performant code.
Well commented.
Yeah. And if you have to, you'll write the documentation, but only if it's in your wage evaluation, maybe, And
these are dark secrets.
They are. Oh, yeah. You lose that empathy when you get behind a monitor. Yeah. You lose that ability. And further, like if we back up to 1982, when I was just writing code, it was self-selected. No one made me go in my room by myself for hours and hours and weekends and evenings to write code by myself. We self-select it as developers. We self-select that this is a process that we can do on our own, and we don't have to worry about other people in the outside world.
Right.
And then we're asked to go and work in large companies with a whole bunch of other people. It's kind of like, hello, rug, pull out from underneath me, please. It's a whole different experience in the professional world than what we got into this for in a lot of cases.
Right. Isn't that interesting? All my programmer friends, I want calls, I want letters, I want comments on this podcast. Because we spent some time in the trenches, and God, I can totally see that. It's just not their world. Or our world. I mean, I was a UI designer first, not a programmer. Like, I took Java courses, but I didn't do anything serious. I wrote CSS, really, that's it. But, these guys are PHP, and they're doing the shit, but this is not, their world is not in a boardroom. Right? Talking to clients, figuring out what needs to happen.
Yeah. That's an incredible capacity, ability to talk to a client, and ask them what their problem is. But
they also, like, every programmer that I've ever met has an innate knowledge of how it should work, and oftentimes, and I've heard this a couple times in my next life, I want to come back as a client, because you know programmatically how this is supposed to happen, like what thing has to happen in order for this other thing to happen. Clients seem to not understand that. They're like, we are going to go from A to Z and skip all the other letters except for the third one. It's just weird, and you're like, it doesn't work that way.
It seemed to me that if there was a process by which one could build a business, then there's a process by which one can write code for that business. And there's processes for writing code, but it doesn't really look up at the business sense. And I use up in the literal sense, in that developers used to be kept in the basement. Yeah. And boardrooms were up on the second and third floor, and then the executives on the fourth and fifth floor. This is a real example. Yeah. And so we were always downstairs in the basement. And I think that was a real physical example of how we approach developers when we're not developers, when we are the clients, and what they're supposed to do, in the sense that we do believe that they're downstairs in the basement, and working away by themselves, and that this is what they like to do, and that we should encourage them to exist in their natural habitat. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the best thing one of the places I worked for did was invest in Quake and foosball tables. and basically tell all of us that we didn't have working hours. We could just work when we wanted to, which was nice. And because then we worked for 12 hours a day a lot of the time, but we'd work, from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd, break for pizza at 3 o'clock and, have a Team Quake server match.
Sure.
Yeah.
Our game was StarCraft.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Ryan.
I've got a Ryan too. Ryan.
Yeah, he would just destroy us at StarCraft. And we would take that time every now and then, and we would have those moments where we would relate to each other as human beings and not just cogs in the machine producing code. Yeah. Insert pizza, get code. Like, that's not mine. I stole that off of a T-shirt I saw on ThinkGeek.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Insert pizza, get code. This is the philosophy. This is the way we approach it. I think one of the coolest experiences I had was last summer. I was at the Pixels and Pints meetup.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a new graduate from the program. I think she was from Mount Royal. And I asked her, what sparked your interest? Like, what got you passionate about writing code? Yeah. And she looked at me cold-eyed, and she said, it seemed like a good career to go into. I'm like, no passion here. Oh, this is strictly a career choice. Yeah, you're going to do great.
Awesome.
Right. You must have social skills, too. There's this new crop of developers who are going into this as a career choice, not because it was something fun to do. That still exists, but now people are doing this as a career choice, and there's this culture clashes happening.
Oh, interesting.
Between the people who do it as a passion and who want to work from 4 p.m. till 4 a.m. with a tight, cool group of people because we all love writing code, to I want to punch in at 9 o'clock and I better be out of here at 5 o'clock because I have to get to my thing that I really like to do. And I don't define myself by what I do for a living. I define myself for what I do on the weekends, and working with people who do define themselves as developers because that's what they would be doing on the weekend.
Do you see this at play right now?
Yeah.
And how is that being dealt with?
I see it. I don't think it's being dealt with.
Oh, okay.
I think business's first rule, like from a business management perspective, is always like, if you have an interconflict with people, you get out and you let them solve it.
Right.
And now we've got these new concepts around hiring for culture, and culture fit first.
Right.
And when it comes to hiring a developer, you have this interesting problem because it's really hard to find out what a culture fit is for a developer. And there's not a lot of work around this.
Do other developers maybe become part of that hiring process? Is that a thing that would be done? Like, do they maybe select their team? Is that
developers are wonderful people too. Don't get me wrong. Here's one of the best things about developers is they don't want to be promoted. Generally speaking, that scene in Star Trek where Captain Kirk's like, don't let them promote you.
Right.
Like that one?
Yeah.
That was, stay on the bridge. You can be the most effective there. You can do your best work there. I think developers who do this because they're passionate about it and because they love it, they share this. Don't promote me.
Right.
I'm
good.
I want to write code. This is what I live for. Don't make me a project manager.
Yeah.
Or they get to a point, 12 years later, talking about myself now, where you're not as passionate about writing code and you want a different tool set to solve problems with, and then it's like, you can maybe like promote me now. I would kind of be okay with that.
Yeah.
Or you go completely rogue. You start your own consulting company and you propose something completely new on how people should go about developing their software.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, which is also really cool. What do you find? What's your favorite thing about speaking?
When people come to me afterwards with a question.
Yeah.
You can ask a question, like you see a presentation, you raise your hand, I've got a question, blah, blah. Yeah. And you hope that it's a smart question, for one.
Yeah.
And number two, you hope that it answers the questions that the 10 other people want to ask you, but they're too afraid to raise their hand.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, if that question doesn't get answered by somebody else raising their hand, someone who's quiet and shy will come up to me after and they'll say, hey. And they'll be a developer usually, and they'll be like, that really connected, it really resonated. I'm having trouble connecting the dots between A and B. How do I do that? And it'll be an incredibly insightful question, and it'll turn out that I missed one sentence in my presentation that would have answered his question in the first place, kind of thing. And I'll be like, this is where it goes from here, and this is how you connect it. Okay, cool. And then how do I get from B to C? I'll be like, shit, how much did I miss in my presentation? And they're just like, they got it, they nailed it. And to have somebody come up afterwards and say, A, I understand.
Yeah.
B, you missed this and this. And C, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah, I love that shit. Mind.
The other one is, in every topic that you could ever present on, there's controversy.
Right.
There's those things that you shouldn't talk about in a live presentation.
Yeah.
Because somebody in the audience is going to have a diametrically opposed opinion, and they're going to be highly opinionated about it and vocal too.
Yeah.
And you can talk to people who give you advice on presenting. A, don't go there.
Yeah.
Or B, if you go there, go armed.
Right.
And I think B path is the best way to go.
Yeah.
Go there, go strong, be armed, be well prepared to deal with that person who is diametrically opposed to you, and drag them kicking and screaming back to your side of the argument if necessary. Yeah. And you can completely blow up your entire presentation by doing nothing other than that, because everyone else in the room knows about that elephant that you're trying to eat right now.
Yeah.
And they will watch you, and they will judge you based on your ability to go toe-to-toe against that guy.
Totally. Yeah.
And if they're in the audience and they're leaning towards that other person's perspective, you have a good, strong chance of pulling them over to your own.
Yeah.
And if it goes the other way, then you have an opportunity to learn something, and you have an opportunity to grow, and you have an opportunity to change and become better at what it is that you do, because you had that opportunity to have that discussion, and so does everybody else in the audience right there. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's nice to this construction is great. I think that it's nice to have that challenge, to be able to rise to it if you can, but to be able to go away and find out more. Like there's been times I've done talks where somebody's asked me a question I didn't have the answer to, and I think that that's okay. As a presenter at the front, you don't have to know everything about all the things. I think it's quite reasonable if something comes up that is outside of your knowledge base to be like, I didn't even think about that. I'll find out and get back to you. Just make sure you do it. Go find out, because then, like you said, then you get the learning from it. I think that when you're a speaker, you're standing up there. Oftentimes, you feel that you have to be the expert in all things, and you don't have to be. You need to be the expert in what you're talking about.
Yes,
but not these weird little offshoots.
Well, they teach us in business school about niching down.
Yeah,
find your niche and go after your passion and become the world's foremost leading expert in that one thing. And of course, you have the opportunity then to use that as a wedge and grow, and become wider. So you don't need to know absolutely everything. What is the bias? The imposter's bias, is it?
Yeah.
Where you don't think you actually know as much as you think you do.
Yeah.
You combine that with the Dunning-Kruger effect and the valley of self-doubt. Yeah. When you get into that area, you actually know so much more. But you're not willing to allow yourself to present it or share it with other people because of that self-doubt, or that bias. And developers can suffer from that greatly. Yeah. Especially if you do it for love, especially if you're self-taught, especially if you don't have a master's of science from a certified university saying, yes, you can write Java, Yeah. Yeah.
I have a certificate that says I can.
Oh, cool. Can you make one for me?
No. Oh, sure. Fuck yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that.
All right, let's do that. Let's do some certifications.
I can have some certificates all day long. What else do you want?
Well, yeah.
Make it happen.
I want to do a certificate, Masters of Software Road Mapping.
I'd love it.
And do some kind of a workshop or something where people can come in and they can learn all about how to do this stuff, and why Waterfall is not your enemy, and how Agile can suck sometimes, and what risk management is all about on the business side, and how that impacts how we write code. There should be something like that.
Well, you've got a 5-day thing, right?
Yeah. Holy crap. That's a marathon, let me tell you.
Yeah. Crazy amount of content, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I'm such a firm believer that the first thing you have to do is find a customer, and number 2 is prove your user experience before you write code. Yeah, find a customer. Do it with spreadsheets if you have to. Do your user-tested wireframing on a whiteboard. I'm a firm believer in user experience. I went and I had to find somebody who does know more about UX than I do, because it's not my strength. And so I went and I found this gentleman by the name of Eric Orman. Yeah. He's a Kiwi. He works at Critical Mass. He's senior UXA over there.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. He knows this stuff inside and out. And so I proposed this concept to him, and that I wanted to do a 5-day workshop. And I wanted to pull in 5 startups as a test run.
Yeah.
just to see, can we find people who are willing to give us 5 days for free?
Right.
Like, that's a big ask.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, take an entrepreneur who's busy doing their business stuff and say, hey, can you just time out for five days?
You don't mind.
Like, yeah, that's be easy. Yeah. We'll do it. And the first 2 days are going to be on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Sold. Sign me up.
Right. So it's we did a couple of rules around our experiment. Number one, we're not allowed to tap current client base.
Yeah, fair.
Can't tap friends and family.
Okay.
Because we're Canadians. You can't ask Canadian friends and family for. Sure. Does this sound like a good idea to you? Oh yes, honey, awesome. That's great. Well done. Can't do that.
Yeah.
So then we had to go and we had to approach strangers. I'm a nerd, so it's hard to approach strangers to do that.
I was gonna say.
So hard.
Wow.
So I went to the friendly, squishy targets first, like the Pixels and Pints mailing list, and I'm like, hey, are there any software startups out there who might like to participate in this 5-day thing?
Yeah.
And we got, was it 8 out of that one list who's like, yes, sign me up now. And some of them were like serial entrepreneurs with 3 software startups in their back pocket. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And then we hit a couple more mailing lists, and I went out and I talked to some people and did a presentation at ATB. I tapped my meetup group.
Yeah.
Which is no longer in existence. Sorry, guys. And one of the coolest things that happened is we needed 5, and we thought it was going to be a fight to find 5, and we got 12.
Holy crap.
And so this weird thing happened where we had to pick and choose out of these 12 which 5 would give us the most scientifically relevant statistical data analysis of our potential target markets. Blah, blah, blah. It was really quite cold-hearted in how we had to cut some of them. And they all took it okay.
Yeah.
Well, one actually sent me about 500 words that were quite angry, but that's okay.
That's 500 words, man.
I was like, oh, daggers, buddy. But he's doing really well with his startup, by the way, I have to say. Good. So, good for him. The interesting thing is, the first day we're there, and we're trying to do this 5-day workshop to teach software road mapping and to help the teams, the startups that were there, actually produce their roadmaps. Yeah. Was Eric takes me aside. He's like, man, I just want to let you know I did some research, and it turns out you lose about 20% the first day. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, so we're gonna go from 5 to 4. We ended up at 7 because more people got called in. Oh yeah, I have a co-founder. We have to call her, and she needs to be involved. And it was like, so we had some really
so
nice
20% growth.
Yeah,
30% growth instead of 20% loss. Jeez.
Yeah, it was flattering, and then it was time to go and reach out and get the testimonials.
Yeah.
And I thought doing sales was hard. That asking for that was really hard.
Really?
Yeah.
But did you get some good ones?
Fantastic ones. Yeah. We did a little survey. Everyone who was involved gave us 5 out of 5, and nice. They thought it was great. And one of the questions was, "How much do you think we should charge for this?"
Right.
And it's like in the thousands of dollars range.
Wow.
They're suggesting we should charge for this, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, now we have to find people who are willing to give us. Let's start high and work our way down.
Yeah.
So, like, who could we find for $5,000 to come in and take this program? Yeah, sure.
Right.
We found one, but it's not enough to run the whole friggin' workshop. And we thought, well, if you're gonna give us $5,000 to come in for 5 days, why don't we just work with you and your $5,000 and just do a software roadmap for you?
Yeah.
And we can knock that out of the park really fast.
Yeah.
And it turned out that learning the skills to do a roadmap wasn't applicable to this particular client anyways.
No. So it's win-win.
Yeah, it's not like they weren't planning on doing a series of software projects after this. This was their one and done kind of thing. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So like, okay. So it turned out that our target demographic and founders to help them produce it as a workshop ends up being a big ask for founders, especially when you're cash strapped tight already, and the first thing you want to do is rush straight into getting a prototype built so that you can start asking people for money.
Yeah. Which
I disagree with. You can't do it with spreadsheets. It's not worth doing,
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's a little, I mean, I'm sure some people would argue that you want to bloat the budget and start cutting code as quickly as possible to prove this and do that, but it's just inefficient.
You've got $1 million to bootstrap your own software startup. Sure, go ahead. Yeah. It's a risk. It's a risk.
Yeah.
But mitigating risk. Spiral. Let's do spiral. Let's start on the business side and work our way down to tech. And sometimes you got to start at tech and work your way up. This is that idea of like two software guys in a garage writing some code, taking the world by storm, how many out there that we don't know of that failed?
Oh, yeah, countless.
Go to any developer meeting anywhere in the world and ask them what they're currently working on and when they expect to launch.
Right.
Come back 3 months later and ask them, are you still working on that code? Chances are they've burned out on the idea. They're not writing code. They moved on to something else. The fact that we have an Amazon or that we have a Google and we have a Facebook and that these projects did actually make it out of the garage is not a testament to a process that is successful as a process. I don't think getting straight into code is the way to go about it. If you can start a business simply by talking to somebody on the street corner, asking them for pre-sales, sure, go for it. Validate your idea first.
Yeah.
Make sure you're building software that people actually want to pay you money for.
Yeah. You've got a 2-hour thing that you're working on now. Is that right? Like a 2-hour...
Yeah. Right now I'm trying to find some concentrated version of the 5D down to 2 hours.
Jesus.
Right?
That's a distillation. Holy crap.
It is. Well, it's just like... You can go online now and you can learn about wireframing. That's no problem. You can watch a YouTube video. Sure. But how does wireframing connect to a storyboard?
Right.
How do you make that leap? How do you go from a wireframe and storyboard and personas into functional requirement documentation writing? This is the most boring piece of writing anybody in the entire world could ever do. Technical writers don't even like doing functional requirements.
Right. It makes my skin crawl just thinking about it.
It does. It's I'm a little bit passionate about it because when it's done well, it means the world to a developer to have that documentation right there.
I'm trying to think of the name of the guy that used to do it for us. I think his name is Mark. So Mark, if you're listening to this, good on you, man. But
yeah, that's a hard job.
I don't know how you could do that.
That was a really hard job. That's exactly the point where all of the concepts around the solution of a product take their first step into execution of that product.
Right.
And it's kind of weird because we don't think about writing the documentation first. We think about writing the code first. And when you talk about writing documentation, it's like, how do you know what documentation you're going to write until the code is written so you can write documentation about how the code works?
Right.
There's this cycle.
Yeah.
The documentation for the functional requirement document is how we build the test. Did the developer succeed or not?
Right.
When you approach it from that perspective, what do you tell the developer about... we're going to need to implement the Google API.
Yeah.
Okay, well, which one? Are we doing a text-based search? Are we doing voice search? Are we doing places search?
Yeah.
This gives us an opportunity to get into some lower-level detail.
Yeah.
And so we can sit down once a week with them and we can have these steering meetings and we can try and talk about it, or we can put it all down into a documentation that expressly tells us what it is that we're expecting them to build.
Right.
And that's about, 20% of the effort to get 80% of the result.
Yeah.
And it's an incredibly powerful document when you put it in the hands of the right people. And yes, it's very waterfall. It's very, let's do our requirements gathering over here as a business. We'll figure out what they are, and then we'll write it all down, and then we'll hand it off to the next step, and those units will process it. And then we'll hand it off to design group, and then the design group can iterate on the front end and do the design work, and then we'll put it out to market. I think there's still some people out there in this world who think that software is done, and then that's it. That's the point. We're done. We're we've printed it on the CDs. We've shipped it in the boxes. We're done. We wash our hands of it.
That is one of the hardest things if you're a completist is working on a software project because it's never over.
There's this amazing thing that happens when you're working in the basement on your own project, writing code on your own project, and you think, it's going to take me 3 months. I'll be able to knock this out in 3 months. And 3 months later, you've done what you thought you were going to do, and then you realize that you've got still another 3 months to go.
Oh, yeah.
And then the weirdest thing happens when somebody says they like it, but can you add this feature?
Right.
No, you got to keep going. And it turns into be this bigger set than you ever thought possible, and it just never ends, especially in web.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're distributing a piece of software on a device, let's say if you're doing IoT or something, it's a little bit different. But for the most part, software is never done. When you flip over to the business side and you open a software development studio and you work with clients, you know this to be true.
Yeah.
And it becomes part of your business plan because the maintenance and upkeep means you have this bed of clients that are constantly feeding you work.
Yeah.
That just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And then you get into this other problem where I don't have enough hours in a day to do that work, let alone try and bring on new clients and work on the new projects and grow the business in that sense. So you had to bring somebody in. And then when you try to bring somebody in, it's like, oh yeah, here's the 42 projects over here that I've been working on for the last 2 years. Let me get you caught up to speed. That's not going to happen.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is, yeah.
What keeps you busy outside of work? What kind of passions have you got going on?
I like to challenge myself.
Okay.
They say that you should focus on your strengths and do your strengths, blah, 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 but I've always been the other way around. I want to be a very broad person. So I stepped into graphic design.
Nice.
I got out of doing code, and I stepped into graphic design, and coming back to that, I need something that's going to be done.
Yeah.
So I developed a card game.
Yeah, right.
Called Do Done Drink. I did all the graphics design on that by using open source public domain images from the British Museum Library.
Oh my god, that's fun.
Yeah. So it had this nice theme that was just readily package available. I slapped the goofiest game on top of these images in like the simplest, straightforward design I could.
Nice. Do Done Drink?
DoDoneDrink.com.
DoDoneDrink.com.
Yeah. Oh, look, I just did that.
Yeah, I know.
That's my first time.
Yeah. Glad I could be here for that.
Oh, that's so funny.
DoDoneDrink.com.
Oh, that's a fun feeling. Hey, that's cool. Yeah. It just we just launched it a month ago. Yeah. We've sold 12 whole copies.
Nice. And where does this game come from?
Where does it come from?
Like, did you just make it up one day, or is it like something you used to play with your family?
I used to hang at this wonderfully creative, incredibly inbred coffee shop called Words Cafe that was run by some amazing people worked there. Peter was fantastic.
Words Cafe?
Words Cafe, yeah.
Here in town?
Yeah, it was just over on 17th Avenue.
Oh, okay.
I met some amazing people, incredibly inspired people at that. And we would just hang out there and drink coffee until 3 or 4 in the morning. It was one of those, we'd go to the bar and then go to Words kind of things.
Yeah.
And we were sitting around and we would be playing board games. You know, it's all the rage now for gaming cafes, but man, were they ever ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And we got tired of playing Risk. And so I broke out a copy of the Mad Magazine board game. And it had this cool mechanic. Like, it was a totally goofy game. It's my favorite game in the entire world. It's like just genius. I can't imagine you could find it anymore for sale anymore, but it was super silly.
Yeah.
It was just silly. And it had this cool mechanic where people would actually have to get up and move seats to the left or to the right.
Oh, okay.
And as a game mechanic, I thought, someday I'm going to make a game, and that will be the core of it. And then a little while later, there came this opportunity to do a challenge was put down. Can you create a drinking game for a designated driver? Well, it's like, can you create a drinking game for a designated driver?
It seems... Okay.
So first you have to take a drinking game.
Yeah.
All right. So whenever something happens, everybody has to drink.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's make sure that everybody understands up front that what you put in your glass does not have to be alcohol.
Right. Okay.
But most of the time, a drinking game requires it to be alcohol because the point of the drinking game is everyone gets drunk.
Right.
Well, now let's change that. Let's make sure that the point of this game is to have people do something silly. And this is where the Mad Magazine mechanic of everyone moves one seat to the left, one seat to the right comes in. I'm like, okay, well, let's just throw that in, see what happens. And then the idea around Truth or Dare come up. Because Truth or Dare is this little silly game when you play when you're a teenager, but when you become an adult, Truth or Dare can get kind of risque. And it can kind of get a little bit... Who invited that guy? Like, I don't want to play Truth or Dare with that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm usually that guy. So I'm goofy. So I came up with this Truth or Dare means drinking game with this cool change seat mechanic thing. And along the way, I added social media in.
Jesus.
So the Truth or Dare, the dares are usually around do this thing on social media, like the one card gets you 7 points is find a random stranger, take a picture of yourself with the random stranger, post it on your social media with the caption, "We just got engaged."
Oh my god. You're insane.
Yeah, thanks. So, I love hearing that. So it's just, and you don't have to do it. You can always pass the card, but then you don't get the points at the bottom of the card, and it makes it harder to win. And so the value of the do or the done
increases
the harder it is. So if you played at 15 points, for example, That card that I just told you about, that's for 7 points. So you get halfway to a win. A drink card isn't necessarily about what you drink, it's how you drink it. So for example, one drink card for 2 points is you're not allowed to use your hands. There's a lot of latitude in there as to how you could go about possibly drinking.
Sure.
Just get a straw.
Right.
You know, it's really easy.
Yeah.
But then there's some like, you're not allowed to drink unless your glass is touching the floor. Okay, so that's a little bit harder. And then in some cases, you're not allowed to drink unless your neighbor helps you drink.
Oh my God.
And this is where the drinking part comes in, where a designated driver could be drinking water.
Right.
And still be having fun playing a drinking game.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much about the booze anymore. Wow, and that was the whole point. Yeah.
That was super cool. So dudedonedrink.com.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's my passion project right now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you watch movies? Are you like a superhero movie fan?
I am a huge movie fan. I actually my minor was supposed to be film studies when I was at the University of Calgary. Yeah, so I took film studies over there for 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love movies.
So, like, what's your give me your top 3?
Blade Runner, the original.
Yeah.
And then it kind of gets a little bit messy because
Sure.
Clerks, Kevin Smith would be in there, and Seven Samurai, Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Yeah,
Blew my mind the first time I saw it. Yeah.
That's cool. What's on your bookshelf right now?
Spoonbenders.
The hell's that?
I have no clue.
Oh, okay.
I just got it from the library last week. I decided I was going to take a break from reading all business books and techie books and project management books and just veg.
Yeah.
I reached out to my buddy Peter Washheim in Victoria because he loves to read.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need a book. He's like, what kind? I'm like, it's got to be fiction, and it needs to be something that I can just dissolve into for a little while. And he's like, yeah, you need Spoonbenders. Like, just
cool.
Like, he knew that's what I would need. So it's his recommendation that's on my bookshelf.
Which did you hit the library up by Marda Loop, or did you hit the one? Does the new one downtown open yet?
I got one Southwood right by my house.
Oh, nice.
So I just stopped in there and picked it up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't been in a library in so long.
We spend all this time reading online.
Yeah.
And we have these lights in front of us in our phones, and generally speaking, when I read, it's late at night or I'm watching a show, and it turns out that's bad for you.
Yeah. Who knew?
But reading a book with a lamp in a somewhat dimmer room for half an hour, it brings down your biology to the point where you'll start to yawn within a half an hour of reading a book.
Wow.
And it's not because the book is bad. It could be a total page turner, but you've now told your body it's nighttime.
Right.
And you've told your body it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that you need to do is focus on sleep, I think. And that's probably the one thing that we don't do enough of, is focus on our sleep.
Huh.
And so you have to run this experiment. It takes about 6 months to figure out how many hours a night you actually need to get to sleep.
Huh. So how do you know this experiment, and why 6 months? And how do you have
Well, it
to
took
keep
me
a
6
journal,
months to do it. You can take a journal, yeah. You'll find that the general recommendation is 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
Break that down into understanding that sleep cycles happen in 90-minute increments, where you go into deep sleep and then lighter sleep and then deeper sleep.
An app on my phone that tracks my...
Perfect.
It's so cool. To actually see like your wakefulness and deep sleep, your REM, your deep REM or whatever it's called.
Yeah, so you take the app and you work with it to find out what your sleep cycle is. It's usually around 90 minutes, and then you multiply that by 6 or 5. Yeah. In some cases, people can get away with 2 cycles.
Wow.
In sleep, which is like 3 hours of sleep at night. But you have to find out what yours is. You have to find out what your magic number is. And it turns out that if you're waking up tired and you thought you got enough sleep, chances are you might have gotten too much sleep. Because you can wake up tired if you get too much sleep.
Yeah, so this app that I've got on my phone, I forget what it's called right now, but you set your alarm between, I think it's like, if I want to get up at 7:15 or whatever, I set my alarm, it'll be between 6:45 and 7:30. And based on my sleep cycle, it'll wake me up at the optimum time.
That's wonderful.
I thought it was really cool.
Wonderful.
Like, it would just, know where you're at in your sleep cycle and be like, this is the best time. And I'm like, and it works. And you wake up and you're refreshed and you're like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it turns out that minimum for me is 6.5.
Okay.
Maximum for me is 7.5.
Oh.
If I get more than 7.5 hours of sleep, if I go 8 or 9, then I can actually wake up feeling really tired the next day.
Interesting.
Sometimes I'll sleep in. Well, most of the time I'll sleep in. Hi, honey. Thanks for letting me sleep in.
Do the dishes.
Saturdays and Sundays I'll sometimes sleep in, but it's usually because I'll push myself a bit later at night to try and work on those passion projects, to try and work on writing my book, to try and work on those extra things and push in a little bit of time. So, yeah, I'll sleep in till 10, but it's usually because I'm up till 3.
Right.
Working on a project. Like last night I was up till 4.
Yeah.
Which meant that I needed to get extra sleep this morning. And
Yeah, that's one thing I miss right now is I used to have just a cycle that I just did, but now that I have somebody living in the house, I'm now on their cycle, and it's difficult for me. I find it really challenging.
Yeah, I just did a prolonged piece of work where I was up till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
For all that piece, that project's done. Done in the sense that 5 people are going to be using that piece of code for the next 1 year. That's it.
Yeah.
Then they're done with it. So that one does have a shelf life, which is unusual.
Yeah, that's nice.
But everything about that project was unusual.
What you're an entrepreneur. You do shit that you want to do.
10. Yeah.
Yeah. So what advice would you give, or what are the top 2 things that you think either an entrepreneur should do or not do, or give me one of each?
Oh, passion. Number 1, you got to be passionate about it. Don't solve a problem simply because you think that you can make money.
Right.
Like that's the kill yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of scenario. Those are the kinds of scenarios where you're working until 4 o'clock in the morning on something that you hate.
Right.
And it ends up getting in your way, and you end up in this miserable self-destructive cycle.
Yeah.
Blah. No.
And you resent it, and you resent yourself, and
yes. Yeah. And you become a real grumpy person to be around, and nobody likes you. The passion, finding what you're passionate about, is kind of an experience, and not everyone has it. Not everyone knows what that is.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to seek for it. Because as soon as you find that one piece that you're passionate about, you can start doing it right away.
Yeah.
Because you're driven. Before you know it, you'll be doing it all the time until 4 o'clock in the morning. And you'll be suffering from lack of sleep. But you won't notice. Yeah. There'll be a smile on your face because you progressed. You moved it forward. You had this idea, and you're making a difference in somebody's life. And at some point, somebody will come along and they'll say, "Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for doing this. You saved me. You helped me. You solved my problem."
Right. I did done drunk.
Yeah. Right. We had such a blast. It was so much fun. Those kinds of conversations, when they come back at you, that becomes fuel, and it propels you through. Those nights where you're lying awake in bed thinking that you're the worst husband and father in the history of the world, and why you're dragging your family through this whole thing, and then the next day you sign a client for $50,000 and you're like, "Oh, that's why!" Because it is
best.
It's a roller coaster, and it's the only thing that's going to get you through that is to be passionate about what it is that you're doing.
What do you think? What do you think about the status quo? What do you think about the limitations imposed on you or somebody else by others that know better? What do you say about that?
I have issues with authority.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
I describe myself as an anarchist for like the first 46 years of my life, and I'm 46. So
Yeah.
I still
so you
do.
like blowing shit up?
Yeah.
Is that the?
My favorite thing is if I can't make something useful, I'll blow it up.
Yeah.
If I go into a meeting and this meeting isn't useful, I'm going to blow it up just for fun, just to make it entertaining for me. I'll drop. I got into comedy and improvisational comedy. Hey.
Yeah.
Because of my capacity to blow shit up verbally. And it turns out, I didn't know this at the time, but it turned out that it's either a survival mechanism brought on by learning at a very young age that comedy can diffuse some very tense situations, trauma, and those kinds of things. But it also has the capacity to really tear and cut and it can blow damage. Some things up and inflict damage, and you can just hide behind this "it was a joke" kind of thing. So I adapted out of that part of the comedy piece, but I'll still blow up the situation to make it entertaining for myself if I can't get anything else out of it. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I can't. What's the phrase? I'm far too old to hold a fear of dumb people. Something like that. I have to look it up. I'm sorry. It's like my favorite line in the world, and I just totally butchered it. But yeah, it was from The West Wing, and yeah,
amazing.
I suffer fools very poorly.
Yeah,
I really do. And sometimes when I was younger, I would kind of use my intelligence to push them around and manipulate them and get what I wanted, and that wasn't very cool at all. Not at all.
Well, it's interesting to be able to look back on it and recognize that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a thing, and then scold yourself a little. But it's also that to me, and I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I have some ideas.
Yeah.
That it's a defense mechanism. It sometimes a good defense is a strong offense. Sometimes
it was necessary. I felt when here's a very real physical threat in front of me, threatening to beat me up for being a nerd, right? And all the bullying that goes along with that. And I can either choose to approach it with humor, and try to diffuse the situation, or I could approach it with humor and just take it down. Just, oh yeah, it was just a joke, man. It was just a joke. Like, why are you getting all upset now? Like, what is the point? It was
flip the script.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was mostly out of self-defense that I would do it. I didn't do it to be mean or self-serving or selfish or to get things from people at all. No, it was always self-defense, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my humor came from.
I like comedy as self-defense.
Sure.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's like
Billy Connolly's Scottish martial arts.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, you can do a lot with comedy, and you can do a lot with silly. And one of the other, like on the more serious side of things, when I was approaching the concept of doing Do Done Drink, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted it to be, there was this idea of some very serious gaming.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a card game, and kids would play this, and part of Pokemon is actually gambling.
Oh.
Where you can actually win a card off of your opponent.
Right.
And it kind of grew this serious gaming element around gaming itself, and gaming became competitive, and we have professional video gamers now.
Right. In stadiums, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, right? Like, good for them,
Man, like, I want to say that it was my generation that made that possible. And combat-colored cargo shorts.
Combat-colored cargo shorts.
That was us.
Living the dream with my pasty white legs and cargo shorts.
Cargo shorts.
Oh man, they have this concept of competitive gaming, and there's this concept, I suppose, of in my head of comedy is self-defense, which is combat comedy, we'll say, and I wanted it to be seriously silly was the point of doing this game. And when I approach gaming, it has to be silly, it has to be goofy, it has to be the other side, the flip side of that coin, where comedy for entertainment and funny and levity and those kinds of things. So I did not want to create a serious game that could be competitive at all. No.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Any last words? Words of wisdom? Words of advice? Words to blow shit up?
Words to blow shit up. Start in your heart of hearts and find out who you are. This is the hardest thing to do. If you're sitting there and you're in an office job and you freaking hate it and you're trying to find, what is it that's going to get me out of this?
Yeah.
It's you. You are the one who's going to get you out of that. It's not somebody else. You can't look to somebody else. You can't look to me and say, if I could just go and work for Mike, everything would be better.
Right.
No, you can't. Same with dating. If I could just find the right person, no, you can't. It starts inside.
Yeah.
Start there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Leave it at that. Mike, thank you so much for joining me on the RebelRebel podcast.
Cool. Thanks, man.
It was kick-ass.
That was fun. Yeah.
Coming up next week, Kat L'Esperance from The Sensible Marketer talks about how she got started in business and where that fire for entrepreneurialism first got ignited, and what it is that makes it all worthwhile. Check out next week's episode on RebelRebel every Monday.